Welcome to Just Between Us.
Wait, I do that.
Wait, but you might notice we have
microphones.
We're testing it out. So this is our first microphone test.
You asked for this and we gave it to you 9 years later. This is an exciting episode, I think.
Oh, yeah. So I mentioned this on the podcast briefly, but it just came up kind of naturally because we were talking about my therapist and why I switched therapists and what I like about my new therapist. And I was like, well, she's a specifically like autism expert therapist, which I looked for specifically. And then I had to be like, oh, right, I'm autistic. There's lots of stuff that I've realized belatedly. I know that like a lot of the fans have sort of been like, yeah, we figured. And a lot of friends sort of were like, yeah, no duh. I was sort of dealing with this for like the past year or more. And even like randomly, someone texted my ex when we were still together and was like, wanted to talk about her own diagnosis and was like, just assumed, was like, Gabe's autistic, right? And I was like, wait, what? Did you tell her? And my ex was like, no. And then the person was like, oh, I just thought they were like, I thought everybody knew that. And then a lot of you guys have responded to the post about it being like, I thought everyone knew this.
How does that feel?
I think it explains a lot, which is cool. And it's been helpful. Like, so I read Devin Price's book about autism unmasked, and that was incredibly helpful. And I think it's been good for not blaming myself for stuff. Like, there's sort of some easy manipulations that have happened to me that I think maybe were related to the way that I think.
Like what?
Relationship manipulations, where it's like easier to sort of get me to believe things or make me think things are my fault that aren't, because I'm just very, literal about it. Or even like there was this post that I saw that I was like, oh my God, this happened to me, right? Where, okay, I think I've told you this maybe. It was a post that was like a bully in 7th grade. It was like a tweet and it was like, a bully in 7th grade. You stink. Me. No, I objectively don't stink. I think I smell fine. What could you be talking about? Me hours later. Well, I definitely don't stink. So what did they mean by that? And like that was my experience for so much of like middle school and high school, was people having like a negative reaction to me and me just being so confused about why. I had an instance where there was a girl that bullied me in middle school, and I wrote her a letter that was like, hey, just we seem to be missing each other. Like, I don't know why you pick on me. Like, what is the reason for this? And like, why is this happening? You know, like, just if you could just figure, like, what is the social dynamic here? And why is it that you're mean to me? And I gave it to her and she read it. And then she read it out loud to her lunch table. And then they were making fun of me. And then she cornered me in the bathroom and was like, why are you so weird? Like her thing was like, you can't even be bullied correctly. Like, because you're so fucking weird. And it was just because I was like, right, so the social dynamics of middle school seem to be that you are mean to me for a reason I can't really discern. And I would just sort of like to hash that out. And like, that's not really normal for like a, you know, like a 12-year-old or 11-year-old or whatever. And so I think it was just because I was like, well, this is confusing. Why would someone be mean to someone else? Like a little robot. I've just had a lot of those experiences, I think. For instance, I was watching Love is Blind, and they seemed to think that this one guy on Love is Blind this past season was autistic. And there was a scene where one of the girls was like, you don't blink enough. Your face is very strange to me. I've sort of had that instance where I'm coming off wrong to people, but I don't really know why. And it's incredibly confusing. And then I read about something called the Autism Uncanny Valley effect, which is basically like people are rubbed wrong by you, the sight of you and your mannerisms and what you do, but they can't really pinpoint why, and you can't really pinpoint why. It's just kind of like a lot of neurotypical people are just, it's just not connecting in a way that makes them deeply uncomfortable. So then they think that you are what's wrong. Like, it's like, look to them, it's like, you look human, but you're not behaving human enough. So it's a little weird.
I have always found you to have very good social skills, though. Like, I feel yes and no. You're very gregarious, and you're good at networking, and you're good at like socializing.
But think about, a lot of what I'm doing is I've learned to ask people questions about themselves, and I've found that if I'm talking to someone and I start thinking about what I'm doing, I'm copying their movements. Zoom has really been horrible for this because I've realized that if I'm in a Zoom with someone and they're sitting like this, I'll sit like this. Or if they have their arms crossed, I'll cross my arms. And it's all subconscious. And then I have to be like,
I think a lot of people
I'm
do
copying them.
I don't necessarily, I mean, maybe that is an autism thing, but I think that's also just a social thing that people tend to do.
You think?
That like you mirror, other people, unless you're uncomfortable, but yeah.
I think some people don't because they have like a, not like a sense of self, but like, I don't know. Like, I think there's some stuff that I really learned that is like scripts. Or like things that I've figured out how to do because I know other people like it. But like there's a lot of stuff where I think, that I've missed, that I was rude, or that I missed that I said something that you shouldn't say, or that I oftentimes am like, we went from joking to suddenly they're upset, but I don't know why. It's interesting, like looking at different accounts, and like obviously it's a wide spectrum. So there's like, it's hard. It's like this really hard thing where people, like they put mental illness or whatever on like a scale, like how do you feel about when people say severe OCD or like high functioning?
I know that some communities have issues with the term functioning.
Yeah.
So
what does that mean?
I'll take that aside, but I do actually think that looking at mental illness as a spectrum, instead of just categorical, where it's like you have it or you don't.
Yeah.
I actually think the spectrum model really rings true to me. And like, I think that like, I actually often say that I have mild to moderate OCD because there are people out there who have far more severe OCD where it's impacting their life to a much greater extent. And so I think that like viewing these things as being on a spectrum also allows for there to be people who, have OCD tendencies, but maybe aren't at a clinical level to be diagnosed with OCD.
Interesting.
It just like allows for a lot more freedom and gray area than like you have it or you don't. And then also like implying that everyone who meets a clinical criteria will experience it in the exact same way. Yeah. Because it is such a broad range of experiences and severity. And so I actually prefer, I don't like the term functioning, but I like the spectrum language.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I think about it at this point. It's also like it explains a lot of sensory stuff too, noises and stuff, and like things that bother me, which it's been nice to have the language to be like, hey, I know you're not doing this on purpose, and I know you're not saying like this is weird, but being like, can you actually, if you're gonna do that, can you move to another room? Perhaps maybe another county. You know what I mean? And it's like given me a language to be able to, be like, this is what's happening rather than just exploding.
Right. What has it been like in therapy? I mean, because you haven't gotten a full-blown assessment for it.
No, I'm just seeing an expert who's like, yeah.
Has she recommended formal testing, or she feels like that's not necessary?
There's some concern about it to me because I'm the trans stuff is a lot already, and I'm concerned about, I don't know, it's like maybe paranoia to be concerned about what it might do in my chart. But I felt that way with bipolar disorder too. I felt nervous about having it like clinically written down. So I don't know. I don't know that I need to necessarily go out and do anything super differently, other than just being able to have answers to some questions and to not feel as bad about some stuff and to give people more information.
Yeah.
And like, it's been nice because I met my current boyfriend and he is also autistic. When we met, it was like something that he was just very helpful with and was very like, yeah, totally. And it's been nice because he already knows some stuff. It's so funny. Like, he'll be like, thank you for not being upset about this one thing. He's talking about like noises he makes that relate to his autism or specific things that he needs. And I'll be like, who would be upset about that? I can see where certain people also that I've been in relationships with have taken things personally that he can just go like, it's autistic thing. And I can be like, it's autistic thing. And then it's like not personal. I don't know where it's going to go. I'm sure there are people watching this who are like, duh. Or they're just like, that explains why I don't like you. when I texted you, or Melissa and I texted you on Friday, and it was like 7:55 p.m., and you said, I'll talk to you guys later. I'm going to sleep. Were you really going to sleep at 8 p.m. on a Friday?
Gabe, you don't keep track of my life at all. Melissa knew I was in New York.
I knew you were in New York, but I didn't realize you were in New York then. And I was like, is she okay? Oh, thank God.
No, I was up late. It was like 11.
Thank God. Oh my God. I was so nervous. I even said to Alex, like, is she okay? Do you think?
And then Melissa wrote back. I figured after I sent it, it was probably too late.
I know. And I thought, Melissa knows that Allison goes to bed at 8 p.m.